Join the mortgage expert Keith Barnes as he equips loan officers and real estate agents with innovative ideas and tools so you can adapt to the changing environments in the marketplace. Be inspired by stories from some of the top professionals in the mortgage world today as they reveal their secrets of what made them successful while gaining knowledge and insight about how they continue their success regardless of the market conditions. Find out how to build a team and scale your business. Get ready to be more productive while working fewer hours. Here is your host, Heath Barnes.
Welcome to another episode of Mortgages Reimagined. I'm your host, Heath Barnes, and today our guest is a 26-year veteran in our industry, married, father of four. He strikes a rare balance between family and managing his mortgage practice. He has a deep knowledge of the industry. Not only is he a coach, but he was also the #1 loan officer in Houston Agent Magazine in 2020. He enjoys time with his family, traveling, and he's a pilot. I'd like to learn more about that, Michael. So, but anyways, he's also a coach, and I recently attended an Amplified event where I got to have a deeper understanding of his story, and I'd love to hear more about your story today. Welcome, Michael.
Hey there. Hey, looking forward to this.
Yes. I really enjoyed our time together last weekend. Thank you for attending Amplified. For those of y'all that don't know about Renee Rodriguez, we'll leave information in the show notes. But Michael, you've been in the business a long time, and I feel like I know you a lot better now and have a lot more respect for you and what you're doing in the industry. But I'd love for the audience to get to know you. And so if you can just give us a little bit of your background, maybe how you got in the business,
sure,
that would be helpful.
Yeah. So when I was 18, I was living in New Hampshire. I didn't really have a career path, but I knew I didn't want to go to college. I was working at the time at the United States Postal Service, pushing just buttons on a keyboard. I was what they call a DCO operator, where stuff's flying across the screen and you're just typing in the addresses. And it was the most boring job you can imagine. And I thought, man, I want to be the fastest at what I do. And I kept getting faster and faster at that. And then I would go in and they would sit me down and say, well, your accuracy rate is 98.736%. You could be at 99% if you slow down. I was like, well, and I said, well, how fast am I? Like, you're the fastest keyer here, but you could be more accurate. I was like, so if I'm the fastest keyer, if I'm typing twice as fast as the next person, do I get a bonus or do I get an override? You know what they said to me? No, you don't get any bonus.
We want you to be more accurate.
Yeah, we don't reward. Yeah, we don't reward speed, man. So I realized at that point in time that no matter how hard I worked, I was only going to get a salary. And that's when I realized I needed to do something that would actually pay for my efforts. And so my mom knew someone down here in Texas that was in real estate. So I came down here very scared because I was by myself. I was renting an apartment, a garage apartment behind the office for the real estate office. And it was international real estate. It was commercial. It was very, very hard. It was dealing with Chinese diplomats overseas. It was late nights doing faxes and so forth, because it's back in '96 when we used fax machines. Yeah. And so it was hard. And I didn't like having to work from midnight to 3 o'clock on a project, because that's when they were up overseas. And so I got disheartened, and my mom knew someone else in Houston, but she was in the mortgage business. And she's like, hey, you know what, your apartment just because I got robbed in the apartment. And it's like, man, I need to get out of this apartment. She's like, you could buy a house. I was like, I just turned 19. How am I going to buy a house? And she said, no, you can buy a house. We can work this out. And I was like, I think I was making like $22,000 a year, Heath.
Wow.
And the houses back then were like 80 to 100,000. And so it's 4 times. Huh?
Go ahead.
Yeah, it was 4 times my income. And I was like, how am I going to afford a house? I've rented 3 generations. My family has rented our whole lives. We've never owned anything. And she showed me how to use down payment assistance with the city of Houston, how to refinance my car. And more importantly, and this is the topic that we might cover today, which has to do with what the market's bearing right now, which is seller paid temporary 2-1 buy downs. The builder paid for a 2-1 buy down, bought my rate down from 7.5% to 5.5% for the first year. And I was able to afford my first home. And that's what opened up my eyes to home ownership and the dream of people that thought they couldn't owning a house. And at 19 and 2 months old, I bought my first home with $110.36 at the closing table. So
that's a lot to be proud of. I was 32 when I bought my first home. So,
oh, wow.
Man. So did you get into the mortgage business at that time?
I did. I got out of that.
An agent?
She's your mom? My mom wasn't an agent. She was just, she just knew some people in Houston and was kind of doing some over the phone consultant work. And so she was an interesting character, which I know you found out during our session together. So, but to come down here and get into the mortgage business at a time, it was 1996, 97. So it was still kind of like a market today with same interest rates. I mean, almost the exact same rate then as it is today. And people, they're freaking out today about rates going up. I'm like, well, we were excited because rates had come down from 8%, 7.5%. Right. It's all about perspective. But at least I was, able to buy a house with such a low income. And 3 years later, man, in that house, I made $30,000 3 years later on the sale of that home at age 22. So,
wow. So, I think that's an opportunity most people right now might miss if they're not looking at, the market. Like most people want a lower interest rate, but we've got massive inflation. So, so that means your home prices is going up. It's a conversation that I have every day. So what's the conversation you're having with your clients? It seems like repetitive every day right now.
Yeah.
About the market.
Yeah. Their concern is obviously they don't want prices to keep going up. They're concerned about the Fed, raising the Fed rate even further and that raising interest rates. As I'm sure you've heard Barry Habib in our business say recently that he feels like it currently is padded. The bonds and the market is already padded for the November and December increase in rates. So I think it's already I personally think the top out is probably 8%. I don't think it's going to go much higher than that personally. So when I'm talking to clients right now, I'm just talking about the temporary aspect of the interest rates. I do think rates will come down. We can't obviously promise that, but I think based on statistical data that is being provided to us by people like MBS Highway with Barry Habib's company, I really do think rates are going to come down at the beginning of the year. Therefore, the key to today is making sure that we put, and I'm sure do you use Optimal Blue as well?
No, we have our own pricing engine. So no, but it's similar.
So a lot of pricing engines have the ability to save that price and save that client in. So what we're doing right now is we're taking every single client we close and we'll put a rate watch on their alerts for 1 point below whatever we're closing them at, or 1.5% below. So that way, when 6 months rolls around, both me and the client are getting the same exact email saying, hey, it's time. And I learned that technique from a guy that David Jaffe, he's worked for OnQ Financial and Guaranteed Rate, $360 million producer last year. He is a refinance king in California. Most of his clients have always been adjustable rate mortgages. Of course, we're seeing a lot more ARMs. I think you saw the news today where both Housing Wire and Scotsman Guide was talking about the fact that 18% increase in adjustable rate mortgage business this year, or this month, sorry. And so I'm seeing a lot more of that. People going to ARMs in Texas. I feel like it's like 99% fixed rates. So people are not really comfortable yet or comfortable with the discussion yet. So I would say probably getting them comfortable and doing a discussion with them about adjustable rate mortgages and educating them that this is not like a neg am ARM like back in the 04 to 08 timeframe. This is just a temporary interest rate until rates come back down. If they don't, you can still refinance to a fixed rate down the road as well. But I'm really pushing people towards ARMs.
So what I'm hearing you say is use education as a way to help your client understand what's happening in the market and getting them familiar with using an ARM. So there's two schools of thoughts in this current kind of market, in my opinion, that is that you can either use a buy down to help a client get a lower interest rate, or another school of thought is, okay, well, interest rates are going down, take a higher rate with no points as high as you can, and then refinance it next year. Which do you subscribe to either of those two philosophies, or what advice would you give to a loan officer or a client who's buying a home right now?
I would keep it super simple. If the seller is willing to give money, do this temporary 2-1 buy down. If the seller is not willing to give money, do an adjustable rate mortgage. So if seller's giving, great, do the temporary buy down on, I mean, most lenders now are offering it on FHA, VA, and conventional, on all three products. I haven't seen I'm not sure if you've seen jumbo temporary 2-1 buy downs. We personally, I don't think we have any just yet on the ability to do jumbo, but we're in the process of asking. In regards to the adjustable rates, I would just offer that for all our jumbo, and then of course any conforming loans where the seller's just not willing to fork over the money. So
yeah, well, what do you think about the strategy if, let's say you're selling a home that's $500,000 and somebody's putting 20% down, and you get a $25,000 discount on the price? Would you advise them to take 3 to 5 points and lower the interest rate? Is it rather than doing the seller buy down?
No, and here's why. I think the rates are going to come back down. So which one would you want to sit in first? And let's remember that if you're in the buy down for, I think is it 8 months, the temporary 2-1 buy down, then you can actually get a chunk of it back if for some reason it's not utilized and you refinance the note. So buy downs are, if they don't use the money in the buy down, because the buy down is like money that's held in escrow. So if they don't use the money, it comes back to you as a consumer, even if the seller's the one that paid it. So
for those loan officers that are listening that I've never experienced a 2-1 buy down, so I really don't know a lot of information about that. So could you just touch on the 2-1 buy down and how your understanding of how that works?
Sure, absolutely. So I'm not sure what kind of calculators most people are using. I personally, I prescribe and I highly recommend having one of these puppies. I'm not sure if you've got one yourself.
What is it?
It's called a qualifier plus 3. Okay. I think you can see plus 3. Yeah. So this calculator, you can actually get it at the real estate store. It's actually a real estate agent's calculator. Okay. And I've had this, but it's even on the phone. Like it's probably my number one app I use during the day, if I was going to be honest with you. Okay. So I'll show you what it looks like on the phone here real quick. But it's a $20 app on the phone. It looks just like the other one. Okay. I like keying fast, so I use that one on my desktop.
Wow, okay.
It's the same.
Yep.
You see the tax, insurance, then you see payment, term, interest rate. So what I do is I calculate let's say it's 7.5% today. So I would put the 7.5 in for the interest rate, 30-year term, price of, let's say, $500,000. And then let's say they're putting 5% down. Okay. It's calculated everything. I can hit payment now, and there's the payment right there. Okay. So then I can save it. So I just stored it. Okay. Store that payment in as number one. That's 7.5. If it's a 2-1 buy down, then the first year is going to be 5.5%. It's a 2% bracket difference. So I would put 5.5 payment. I'm going to store that under number 2. I'm going to subtract recall 1, and that's the difference per month for the first year. That's
it's a $624 difference in the first year.
What's 25,000 on the price difference? What?
Right.
$8? I mean, maybe
not much. Not much.
So if the seller's paying this, and you multiply that times 12, that's the cost. So that's the cost in that's the first year cost. And then you would do the same thing for the 6.5%, and then add that to this, and there's your total. You divide that by the loan amount. It's usually an average of 2.25% to 2.4% of the sales price on a lower down payment.
Got it. And so does the client have to pay anything up front on the 2-1 buy down, or how does that work? They get a little bit higher interest rate. Okay.
No, think of it this way. It's a locked product, just like a normal locked product. All you're doing is you're having your closing department keep the money aside, which most companies are now offering the 2-1 buy down. Our company currently is offering the 1-1, 2-1, and 3-2-1. 3-2-1 is very expensive though, because you remember the 3% difference is, if you think about it, that's going to be almost like 20 grand just by itself, the 3% difference. So if you can get a seller to pay $25,000, $30,000, that's awesome. Because it also doesn't, the 2-1 buy down, the temporary 2-1 buy down, that I've been told, I mean, you have to check with your compliance department. Some compliance departments might think of this differently, is not included in the 3% cap because the seller is paying for it. Okay.
Got it. What about jumbo? Did they have the 2-1 buy down on jumbo? Do you know any jumbo lenders out there that are doing it?
I don't. I know our company is currently asking, just because there's so much interest in this now, even at the higher loan amounts. But as of right now, I haven't heard of any jumbo offering either a temporary 2-1 buy down on any of the fixed products or the ARMs. So
okay. And what about? Yeah, what are some strategies you're using with your database right now? As the market starts to slow down, we've got extra time with your database that you think will help if interest rates do come down. You already mentioned earlier about doing a rate watch in Optimal Blue.
Right.
What other strategies do you think are going to help loan officers in this market over the winter that will set them up for success?
Well, the first thing is you got to decide on how many touch points you're going to have and what type of touch points. And I'm talking like as if you're designing a war room, image, like, am I going to flank them from the side? Am I going to flank them from the front? Like how are we doing this in regards to attacking? I hate to say it, but attacking the drawbridge that it comes down, which is their ability to see what you're sending them. So you have to design something via text, phone call, email, and mailing, all four. So when we mail, let's start with the most snail part, which is the mail. Okay. So we don't just mail like automated stuff. I actually have my marketing gal. She hand writes the envelopes because it's been proven that 68% of what's handwritten gets opened. It's proven that the other, if you actually have it typed on there, the chances of them tearing that sucker up is pretty high. So handwritten always gets opened up. It's really rare that it doesn't. That's why when you do it for sale by owner or something like that, you get a lot of handwritten mail from agents. It's because they know it's going to get opened up. So handwritten envelopes, if you can. What I do is I've got a huge database, so we can't mail our database every single month. What we do is we partition it with the alphabet. So first quarter, second quarter, third quarter, fourth quarter. So that way every year, every single person is getting at least one envelope from me that's handwritten, because I've got 2,200 people in my client database that we've kept in the database. So we just do it that way. We split up into 400 to 500 envelopes per quarter. And then
what are you writing in that card?
So we do a combination of the Brian Buffini's mailing that he's got, which if realtors are familiar with Brian Buffini's systems, lenders might be as well, but they have both a lender letter and they also have a realtor letter. So that way you're not sending the same thing as your real estate agents if they're in Brian Buffini's system. But it's just a slick with a cover letter that's usually pertinent to today's information. So the last one that went out had to do with like something to do with pets. And so I did a combination of that plus like a little thing about what, the best healthy eating pet stores around town type. So that way it's localized. I think the month before that, it was like how to, spring clean your house or something like that. I mean, it just depends on the time of year. Christmas is approaching. I don't send out like recipe cards or anything. I don't like recipe cards personally. My wife does her own recipes online. So, but whatever you think is going to get their attention. I know with the core, we used to do letter of the heart. And then of course, like a combination of letter from the heart, which is something more personalized about you and your family. And then there's also more information about your industry. So, what I hear you saying is give something of value that you think your clients would actually get something out of. And then for those listening, letter of a heart is just, if you've never heard of a letter from the heart, it's like every quarter or every month writing something about your life, a story about what's going on and maybe a lesson that you've learned. And, I'm surprised. I'm surprised when I get those letters from the heart, how often I read that, but yet I'm still not doing it. So you've inspired me to start doing a letter of a heart. So thank you. So for mail, so got it on mail. We got that. Now, how about for email or phone or text? So let's go to the phone and text. So we also want to hit them with a phone call once a quarter. So what I've been doing is 5 to 10 phone calls per day to the past client database, and it's a rolling thing on my phone where I just have all my contacts, and I'll pick a letter and then start somewhere, and then just start making calls from the car. And my conversation is so simple right now. If you don't even have to write this down. It's this easy. Hey, with everything going on with the economy, craziness out there with inflation, I just want to see how you and your family are doing. How are things going? I just keep it that simple. Like they let them open up, let them say, oh my gosh. Like I talked to a guy, Mark Graff, one of my past clients yesterday. His father just passed away. He actually wants to talk about financial advising. So he's going to be a referral that I can then give to my financial advisor. Okay. Also will and testament attorney. And by giving them referrals, you know what that means, right? They reciprocate back to me. I've got 3 new financial planners I've put on my sheet because financial planners are so busy right now with just conversations with people. It's the perfect time to hook up with, so I'm not supposed to use that word. Teenagers say, don't use that word, Mike. Connect with those financial planners. So that shows my old schoolness right there. But for me, it's just about making sure you're also connecting with them as a person rather than it being about business. Hey, how's your mortgage doing? How's your like? Some people call and say, how's the house doing? Well,
Yeah.
the house is standing. They might not be standing, but the house is standing. Don't ask them about the house. Don't ask them about renovations. Because then it starts to sound like you're looking for a deal. Right. And what you're wanting to do is connect with them. Let them do the talking. They might say their kid's going off to college at UT, and then the conversation might turn into, man, the rents are going so high. And you might say, oh, well, I have a client that just recently purchased a condo in downtown Austin, and his kid rented it to the other 3 kids in the room or in the condo, and they're now cash flowing on this property. Have you looked at that? And it stems into a real estate question, and all you're doing is giving an example, but you're really trying to help them from a wealth building standpoint. Right. They're going to be more accepting of it because they're the ones that brought up the topic. You're the one that interceded and said, hey, this might be a solution for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So what I hear you saying is just call and just touch them, ask them a simple question and see where it goes from there. I love that idea. Absolutely. Rather than, hey, I remember when I was young in my career, I used to get nervous to call my clients. Now, the calls that we've been making is calling the clients and just saying, hey, I don't know if you've noticed how much your home has gone up in value, but the reason I'm reaching out is some people want to know what's going on in the market, and, no surprise, rates are going up, and, I'm referring out a lot of lines of credit. So
yeah, that's good.
Anyway, so I love that. Thanks for sharing that. Any other advice on previous clients, what you could do?
Yeah. So if you don't have an email campaign through your company, through the marketing, then find one. Like, there's so many campaigns out there with great material. Here's the thing. It doesn't matter what's in the email. It matters that your name pops up. Yesterday, something went out about our veteran campaign because I think it's Veterans Month. And I got 6 responses. It went out to like 1,500 people. I got 6 responses that had nothing to do with the email. Nothing, not one thing. And then I ended up with one veteran calling me and saying, hey, I'm actually going to rent out my current place. And I knew exactly who it was because I've done client appreciation parties, and he's shown up. He's one of the biggest, baddest looking veterans I've ever seen, but he's a big teddy bear. He's got the coolest German Shepherd dog that's so well trained. My daughter got to pet her, and I was asking about the dog. I was asking about himself, and I wouldn't have done that. I wouldn't have known that much information about him or thought like I know exactly who this is unless he had come to a client appreciation party. So the last thing I was going to mention is once a year, I do it every quarter, but if you can do it once a year, have a nice big 6,000 to 10,000. I know it's expensive, but the rewards are significant. And here's why. You have a client appreciation party and you're trying to figure out who your A clients are. Guess what happens? You find out immediately because they show up to your event. So
right, for sure.
Like, you write them down. Those are going to be your best referral sources out of your client base. And people are like, yeah, but most of my referrals come from realtors. Well, that's sad because guess what? If you were giving referrals back to your realtors, solid referrals from your past clients, and you give those back to your realtors, it builds a better relationship with the realtors that actually gave you the business in the first place. Because half the time that client doesn't remember the realtor, but they remember you because you're doing all these touch points. And then second, if it's a realtor that you never even really worked with, now you've got the ability to give that business out to somebody. I gave like $8 million $7.2 million in business last year to my realtor base. And I would not have been able to do that if 38% of my business wasn't coming from my past clients.
Yeah. Yeah. That idea of doing a client appreciation part, I know has helped me. And one of the strategies that I use is I'll limit it to 100 people. Like we did a Top Gun event. So a Top Gun movie, and we had 100 seats available, and it was gone literally in 3 days. Wow! And so if you know a good movie, I think it cost me $1,500. I literally dressed up in a fighter suit and sang the song "You Never Close Your." It was great, dude. I mean, I was super nervous before I did it, but it went off well. But what I want you to know is, what I take from this is, doing a client appreciation party, once you have your clients coming, you can call the realtors that referred them to you and ask them to attend. So that's the leverage you have there. So thanks for that. Ideas on client appreciation parties? What do you do?
So, well, we've got 3 coming up that are with our agents. So we co-op with our real estate agents, which I'm going to tell you that you want to talk about a way of making sure you've weaved your your web of business, I guess, into your real estate agents is when you are actually doing client appreciation parties with them, combining it with them, because now they're truly your partner. They're not going to go off and find another lender tomorrow, because now all their business is weaved in with you. And so when you offer the support and offer the ability to actually help them plan a client appreciation party, maybe it's their first one. This is the first one I usually do with people. So that's why we have 3 on November 12th. It's going to be fall photos. So what we do is we tell the realtor, hey, look, where's the nearest park to your house or nearest park to where you normally work that you would take your kids? And then you basically get a photographer, you co-op the photographer. That's about $250 per person, you and the realtor. That's $250. $150 for Chick-fil-A, because Chick-fil-A will stay for 3 hours and it's just nuggets, real easy finger food. People can use napkins. That way they don't get on their nice fancy clothes. You do fall photos or spring photos for them. And all you do is you say, hey, look, you're going to have 15. This is great for realtors that are worried about the clients and whether they're going to like each other. They don't have to like each other. They show up for their appointed time frame, 15-minute increment, right? To do the photos with the photographer. You're giving them family photos. But here's the most important thing. You and the realtor are taking photos with the families as they're standing there in their most perfect clothes with their kids. You're holding a baby up like this. I've had pictures of realtors holding babies that were not their babies, and then they put that on social media. It goes so viral because the baby looks awesome, kids look great, and you got the photographer taking both photos of you mingling with the parents before the photo shoot, and then you also have them doing the photos themselves, and then they give the photos to the families gratis. Doesn't cost the family anything, and it's a nice thank you gift at the end of the year. It's better than a pie day, okay, because it's a lot less expensive. You're not having to worry about 10 extra pies, and everyone's doing pie day. I told everyone this year, I'm like, let's not do pie. I mean, there's so many pies. Oh my God. Like people are coming for I had one person come and they're like, oh, this is my 5th pie. I'm like, this is no longer special anymore. Everybody's giving pies.
Yeah.
Like Oprah Winfrey, you get a pie, you get a pie now.
I love that fall photos. I'm going to steal that. So any other ideas on some movie night fall photos?
Yeah. So I've done the movie night. I've done the one we just did was instead of Cinco de Mayo, we did Casino de Mayo, and we invited our top, like you would say, your top guns. I invited all my top agents, my top clients. I use this office space. They let us use the entire, I'm at like a WeWork type location. They let us use the common area. And we had 7 tables from, it was PokerStars. I think it was PokerStars.net, which is Bill Howard's company. He's got a huge poker/casino company here in Houston. It's very inexpensive. They won't bust the bank. What you said about $1,500 for, I think you can get like 4 or 5 tables for $1,500. We did 7 tables, so we went a little bigger on the party. But I'll be honest with you, 4 tables would have been fine. I don't think we really need the extra blackjack tables. It's better if you have more people at one table. So looking back, I would actually limit it to maybe 4. That way it's got a little bit more exclusivity of people sitting. People were up. We had cocktails. We had kind of a cocktail of the night type thing. They actually even have a cocktail company. So they'll bring, you have the liquor and you have the stuff, and they will actually bring the bartenders as well. So you don't even have to worry about hiring the Texas, whatever. They have to have licenses.
CABC, yeah.
Thank you. So they'll bring the bartenders, they'll bring the card dealers. And for about $1,500, you can have a really, really nice party. I mean, even if it's just your family and a few realtors at your house or something, they'll move the furniture, they'll bring the tables in. You do none of it. Like you just let them do their thing. You just provide the food and you're good to go. So I think that party did require a little bit of planning because I've got a marketing person. But honestly, other than just getting the food here, which we had it delivered, I think we did lupe tortillas, really nice Mexican food. And then, of course, it was casino. So we had some giveaways, and it was just tequila, really nice tequila bottles. We did a little raffle for that. Okay. We had about 100 people show up, and that was on a night there was a major storm. I mean, we actually had the windows leaking in this place that night because it was way windy. Dude, people dressed up like in full cocktail gear. It was awesome. So.
Well, thanks for that. It also, after 26 years, I know you got a few wells that you do business with. For those listening that, want some ideas on what they could do to follow in your footsteps to grab some of those wells, what advice do you have for some of our listeners?
So the first key is the target, right? What's your target audience? Is kind of like what Renee talked about in our 3-day thing. He's like, you got to figure out who your audience is first, and how you're going to communicate with the audience. So the audience is usually top agents. When people say top agents, they can go through a list, and you might not know if that agent is an agent that works for a builder. Maybe they do a lot of relocation. Or maybe they're just a listing agent. They've got a lot of buyer's agents. So the key first to getting a whale account, which means to get an entire team, like a top listing agent, he or she's got 4 or 5 buyer's agents, is you have to go after the buyer's agent first. So the way to do that is if you have listings that are being done, and let's say you get a listing with, or you get a buyer and they're with the Loken Group, and you're wanting to work with the group. Let's just as an example. Okay. So when you're at the title company, that title company belongs to the Loken Group. How you treat the title agents and how you actually intermingle with those people at the title company is going to make a difference. There's also an office manager person, like office coordinator. I would actually send flowers or something to the actual like transaction coordinator on that team and say, man, this transaction was so amazing. Your ability to do I wish every one of my agents had a transaction coordinator just like you. So I've developed relationships with like the top transaction coordinators here in Houston. I mean, I could tell you one gal, she works for 6 different top whales, and she's one of the top transaction coordinators in all of Houston. She's very well known. Well, like I take her out to dinner, her and her husband, like, because here's the thing. She pokes into the ears of those top listing agents and says, dude, I really wish we could do more deals with the Harrington team because they got it together. She does that enough times, then I'm the one making the phone call. And I might say something like, hey, Chad, I know you've seen our deals come across your desk in the last 6 months. I'm a top producer. You're a top producer. So I do that core thing where, hey, like-minded individuals need to work together. And if you hit them at the right time, I mean, sometimes it is timing. I'll be honest with you. I got 2 whale accounts just in the last 2 months. And I've been after one of them for 3 years. So this is also one thing I need to tell you. It takes time. This is not something that happens overnight. If you think you're going to have a lunch meeting or a breakfast meeting with a whale and suddenly they're just going to hand you their business on a platter, that's not going to happen. The other thing is when you're talking to a whale, don't have like a PowerPoint presentation that you've given to 15 other agents. They're going to see that through that really quick. Like you need to get specifics with them as to what they're wanting you to partner with them on. Mm-hmm. It's going to be something big, like client appreciation parties, client appreciation programs, database management. Like how are you going to help them generate more business from their database? I help them do stuff like that. I ask them questions first, like what do you want from a partner other than just money? Because obviously they want to team up with you on money. If it's money, I'm out. Like, because that's not a partner. That's just, you're just grabbing money from my wallet to help pay for your stuff. And I'm not going to get anything from your agents because you're not introducing me as your preferred vendor or preferred lender, I should say. And if they keep using the word vendor, you're out. Period. Yeah. They keep saying vendor.
Yeah. So what I heard you say is go after the buyer's agents, go after the title companies, go after the lower level people that are working for that well, so that they put a good word in their ear. But when you're on if you're having a conversation, like, could you talk about like what's the framework look like? Like what conversation would have the most impact with these whales?
Sure. So I'll give you an example. I got a text message the other night from a whale that I've worked with in the past. Haven't worked with them in probably about 4 or 5 years, just because we weren't working together. So I did a couple of really strong things for them, and then they went elsewhere. I still wanted the account. He texted me and said, hey, would you mind doing a review for me? Because I guess they're trying to build the reviews. And I said, sure. And all I did was I said, would love to. And he said, hey, I'll do a review for you. And I was like, hey, can you mention that one time I did this for your dad in the transaction? He said, absolutely. So he sent me that little snippet of him doing a review. I sent him the review I had done for him, not just a couple of years ago, but I went ahead and revised and edited it now. And I mentioned to him, I was like, hey, are you still having issues with your database management within your last 30 years of doing business? And he's like, yeah, we never did get on that. I was like, hey, I offered to come and show your team how to really maximize the CRM and the one that you're using currently, but also how to set up like appreciation parties. I've got a marketing gal. She's got a degree in event planning. I'll bring her along for the ride. She'll take notes, and then she'll help you guys actually implement and get it done.
Yeah.
And he's like, and so we've got a Zoom call on this coming Monday at 9:00 with me and him and his marketing team and my marketing team. And so it all stemmed from a text message that he sent me, but I've been trickling on him for quite some time through both Facebook, Instagram. I said, hey, congratulations. And just so you guys know, I mean, one of the top teams for EXP in the whole nation that's this team. And so I've worked with, like I said, I've worked with them in the past. They've had a couple of turnovers, but this is the guy that runs the whole team. He's known me for 20 something years. So it's just putting those, I hate to say it, but putting the bugs in the ears, but then I segue. I didn't just go, yeah, I'll do a review for you and end of conversation.
Right.
I thought, well, this is my in. I used it. He saw right through it. I'm direct. I'm not like pussyfooting around. Don't beat around the bush with top producers. Just be direct. I mean, they don't like that. They don't want people. If you pussyfoot around, they're going to think that's how you are with their clients. That you're just going to, yeah, sure, you're approved. Yeah, let me look at something. No, they want to know that you're solid in the way that you deliver, because that's how they got to where they're at.
Right. Yeah. So what I heard you say is when you see the opportunity, jump on it and be direct with those agents. And I did. This actually came up, just popped in my head while we were speaking. But what do you think about this? Like when you get done every month is the listing agents doing a review on the listing agent for what a great transaction it was, and then follow that up with a phone call. I'm guilty because this last week we were calling all the listing agents from the last 3 years. And that's literally great. We would call them and say, hey, I did a transaction with you last year, and because rates have gone up, I've got so much time on my hand. I thought I would reach out to you to see whether or not we could, be a good fit working together. And literally that conversation turned from, oh, really? They would either ask me the address and I would give it to them. Uh-huh. The other thing that I would say is I would go directly at them and I say, listen, we're going into a really difficult time. And what I believe, I'm looking for someone that, number one, I like and that is serious about your business. So I only want you to accept this meeting if you're serious about your business, you're a little scared, but you want to work with someone that thinks they can get through this next 6 months. So I don't know if it did work on a few people, but that's just an idea.
Well, another idea is to do a panel. Like if you can pull it together, it's a little more difficult to do that. But if you've got a few whales like I do, and you can pull together maybe some mini whales, and you do a panel of either a builder panel, like talking to whales, or you got a whale panel talking to their agents, it gives them a little bit of honor, which of course we talked about in the core as well. It's how to honor agent and make sure that quite frankly, people that are big, they have ego, and therefore if you stroke the ego, it works. So instead of just saying, hey, I heard you're a great big agent, that's not enough. Like if you say, hey, you're a great agent, I've heard so much about you, I'd like to put you on a panel in front of your peers to talk about X. Right now we're planning two peer panels, both builder and realtor based. For the next couple of months. I'm trying to somehow figure out how to do it with the holidays, but I think it's critical now that people listen to the whales as to how they're staying in business, how they're making do with the current marketplace the way it is. And people want hope. And so listening to top producers is a way of getting hope, especially if they can attend it for free. I've done it at my church because it's a pretty nice facility right here in Katy. I've done it at a public library. I've done it at Lone Star College. I've done events. I mean, it doesn't have to cost you money. You can hold an event at a title company, because a lot of them have training rooms at Stewart Title, Alamo, Chicago, Allegiance. They all have big training rooms, so they can invite their database. I've done a couple things at Bar Louie here in Katy with top real estate agents, and the last one I did, I had 9 people, vendors that contributed towards it. Guess how much I had to pay? 0.
We all like a little free sprinkled on top of our events, don't we?
Oh yeah.
I mean, what a brilliant idea is. I mean, how many wells would take that phone call when you say, hey, listen, I know you're busy, but I just wanted to see whether or not you're interested in being on one of our top agent panels. And as soon as you drop a name, like one anchor name that, a Heidi Dugan, they're going to be like, okay, yeah. Well,
right.
So, yeah. Well, man, you've given us a lot of great information, from the 2-1 buy down to what to do with our previous clients. I've got a whole page of notes that I'm going to implement. I think the first thing is giving the review to the listing agent that you were talking about. So Before I let you go, I'd love for you to share with our audience either something that you learned from Amplified that weekend that you think that they can take with them, or a quote or a book, like something that our audience would appreciate hearing.
Well, so I was talking to my number one mentor yesterday, and he's the one that actually brought up, I wrote it down. It's called Becoming a King. It's for men. And it's got aspects of Christianity, but also just a big aspect of being the male figure in your household. And when he told me about the book, he's like, Michael, I only recommend 2 books now. It's the Bible and this one. I was like, okay, I'm listening. So I would actually recommend that book just based on his recommendation that he gave me yesterday. I've read Relentless, which is the guy who was the coach for not coach. He was like the personal coach for Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan, and Relentless really taught me during a time like this how to be relentless and not sit on my laurels. And so that's another book I would recommend. But going back to Amplify, when we learned that acronym of LOVE, LOVE, which is listen, observe, validate, and oh gosh, I keep pointing to say embellish. And I say embellish, it's the same, right, as expand. So, but the thing I learned about that, and I've listened to every one of my own conversations since that happened. I'm so tempted to do that thing where he said, don't one up them, but don't try and interject and relate by telling your story. Because what that does is it one-ups the conversation. So I
did earlier in this podcast. As soon as I did that, I was like, oh my God, did I just say that? Like in my mind, I'm thinking, oh, this is a great idea, but I one-upped you. I'm like, oh man. I mean, so
I almost went up to you on yours too. So I held back. I was like, your party. What? Wait till you hear about my party.
Yeah. But because we know each other, right? I know you're not offended. I know you're you're just giving more audience. But when you're on the phone with someone, well, I'll let you explain it because it's such a powerful way to have an impactful conversation, not only with an agent, but also, your spouse. Yes. So I'm going to let you, this is a great takeaway. So go ahead and explain it. So first is listen.
And so you're listening to them tell you something. You make the observation of something that maybe you could pull out of that statement that they just gave you. So maybe they told you that they work for a marketing firm. Then you validate, oh, you work for a marketing firm. That's amazing. I'm always impressed with people that can think outside the box and do marketing. What do you do for the marketing firm? That would be the expand part. And then they say, well, I'm actually a project manager. And in the back of your mind, you're thinking project manager. Okay, this is what your mortgage mind says. It says, okay, this person needs both visual and audio.
Right.
That's how they're going to work. So I'm going to have to put numbers in front of them. Right. And they're going to want to analyze it because they're a project manager, but they're also going to want to take ownership of it. Right. So you're thinking that's your analytical part, but the caring part should just be what was one of your last projects that you just did? That would be the expand part. And then when they start talking about that project, then they're going to be letting go of some stuff. Yesterday, I was talking to a guy named Ali. He was very analytical. He's actually the analytical guy for Overstock.com. So that's his job as analytics. That's literally his position. So I got to see right on my sheet, like who I'm talking to. Right. I tried to do the love thing. It's so funny. He at one point he said to me, this is where sometimes it can go wrong, because I was expanding on his family situation. Like, oh, okay, your wife. So what? Yeah, how long you guys been married? He's like, he stopped me, right? Because he's analytical. He's like, I just really want to ask you a few questions about the mortgage. So he stopped my dig, right? So I was trying to dig in and get to know him better. Yeah. It's going to happen. That's where
that's the observe, right?
Yeah.
You got to observe. and if you're on Zoom, like you can look at someone and know what you have. Like I got on a phone call yesterday and literally it was a husband and wife. I hadn't talked to the wife yet, but I talked to the husband, and this is, a decent sized loan. And the wife got on and I called her by her wrong name. First of all, I didn't read the Zoom. I didn't have any of her information. but instantly, she corrected me, and then she's, chastising the husband. And I'm like, wow, this is so weird. But it's like observing. So, what kind of the reason I tell you that is because when you're on the phone with someone, you can figure out, okay, do I need to like continue to ask them questions about their personality, or do they want to talk about the numbers?
Yeah. So needless to say, I went the wrong direction. Now, the irony is he went ahead and set up a 45-minute discussion because I gave him little like things, but not too much information, like just enough for him to know that I'm the better route. Yeah. And I planted seeds because he was shopping me against better.com. And there's so many things wrong with better.com right now in regards to their company. And so I planted seeds without saying, oh, you're going to hate that company. Look up the, so I had to figure out a way to throw that in there. I'm like, I just said things like, you might want to check out my reviews online because I've got 107 5-star reviews on Google. I'm the most highly reviewed individual loan officer in all of West Houston. That's 7 million people, 100,000 loan officers out there. And I'm the number one reviewed one in West Houston. I said, but then go check out reviews for the entire company of better.com on Google. And you're going to find out that just me as my little team has almost like 1/3 the amount of reviews of an entire company like better.com. I said, and I want you to look at the differences. Actually read through them. I said, because I could talk till I'm blue in the face. Mm-hmm. And it's not about numbers. I was like, it's about you closing on time, you getting your house. And I was trying to relate it to his job, and he wasn't biting for that. But so I was trying to use some Renee stuff, and I was kind of working at one point and then not working at the other. But again, it's practice, right? Perfect practice makes perfect.
So before I let you go, I've got to ask you. You just said earlier that you've got more reviews than anybody in West Houston. I'm curious. How do you get those reviews? Like, what do you do besides ask for them?
No. So what I first do is I observe whether or not they've got Gmail. So if they have Gmail, they're much more likely to do a Google review because they can just easily go into their computer or an iPad. If they log in, then they go to Michael Harrington Cross Country Mortgage. They just search my name. It says post a review right there. So I'll send that link to them, but I'll do it right at closing and say, hey, do you mind? I bring my iPad with me to closing. I was like, hey, would you mind while they're doing the paperwork and getting you funded right now, would you mind doing a quick review for me on Google? Because like the company review is great, but you said you had a great transaction. You sent us some amazing emails. It's just, if it's not on Google, I can't show other people. I really want to show people what you said about my team. And I always make it not about me, but my team. That way it doesn't sound so, hey, can you talk about me? Because honestly, they usually talk about the entire team. That's usually what the review's about. It's not Michael this, Michael that. It's Shelly and Fernando and the whole team and the team effort. And they always reference the team. And that way it makes people realize that I'm not just some lone wolf out there. So
yeah. Well, I mean, this has been outstanding. I really enjoyed this episode today. Thank you for opening up your book of ideas, and thank you for sharing with the audience. I'm already looking forward to our next episode and sharing a glass of wine with you soon. So thanks for being on, Michael.
Absolutely. Talk to you soon, man.
Thank you for listening today. Hopefully this discussion inspires you by providing new tools to shape your business so you can become a more innovative and cutting-edge professional in the mortgage space. Join Heath in more conversations with the industry's top leaders by subscribing to the podcast at www.heathbarnes.com. That's www.heathbarnes.com.